What's up, Zox fan? We're back with some more Etheria Restart. Now, we're going to be getting into a character overview of the Celestial Rain, Celince. I would definitely say that this unit is a jack of all trades, considering that she not only is going to be bringing you some debuffing capabilities, but she also has some buffing capabilities as well. Now, when we actually get into the intricacies of what her kit does, looking at her first skill, the Toxic Drizzle, the Reunion in the Rain is always a pleasant surprise. Celince deals 240% damage to a single enemy, with a 40% chance to randomly inflict two of the following debuffs for one turn: Dot, Silence, or Oblivion. Now, when we look at each of these debuffs, with Dot, when the turn starts, it takes indirect real damage equal to 4% of max HP, which is based off of the enemy's max HP. Then you have Silence, where that opponent can only cast skill 1s. And then you also have Forgetfulness, which makes it to where opponents cannot passively trigger passive effects. So this is something that actually can become quite problematic for the opponent, because now it is basically making them either only use their skill 1, which most characters typically get more value from their skill 2 or 3. And then if it's a character that has a really strong passive effect, then that's now being completely mitigated if this does land. Now, moving on to the passive ability that Celince has, the Healing Mist. Behind the curtain lies the Hunter's carefully laid trap. At the end of the turn, Celince applies Aqua Shield equal to 12% of her max HP to all allies, lasting until the start of her next turn. Now, with the Rain Curtain, this is also going to be something that absorbs 40% damage and reflects 75% of the absorbed damage. It increases effect res by 30% while active. Now, the main thing you're also getting from this is the Aqua Shield, where that's going to be giving you the 12% of the shield based off of her HP. That's definitely something that can be supplemented as a nice, light layer of defensive layering, but 12% really isn't that impactful. But we'll kind of talk about that later in the pros and cons. Now, when we look at Grim Deluge, even a hippopotamus can drown in a water tank. Celince deals 4 hits of 75% damage to all enemies, with a 30% chance of each hit to basically inflicting 2 turns of attack break and crit rate down, which is going to be absolutely tremendous when we're talking about how she can basically nullify not only the chances of the opponent dealing a certain amount of damage, but the doubling of that damage. So this is actually a really, really good skill 3. And because it is on an AoE forefront and it hits so many times, there's a high probability that more than likely all opponents will have that attack break and the crit rate down. Now, as far as module recommendations, I would definitely say working your way in the early game, the Wellspring set is actually really solid for her. So that's on a 12 matrix bonus, going to be giving you an HP increase of 45% health. Then you also have ones like Bramble. This is going to have a 8 matrix bonus, where the defense will be increased by 10%, and the Animus has a 25% chance to counterattack with a basic attack when hit. You can also consider ones like Unbreakable, for example, whereas Unbreakable is actually going to be giving you your defense. So it has on a 12 matrix bonus, a defense increase of 45%. So you can kind of mix and match these things. Of course, we cannot forget the infamous Speed, which is going to be coming from Swift Rush. On a 12 matrix bonus is going to be giving you a value of 35%. Now, once you start to kind of diversify your gear and starting to play around with some more of the later or in-game oriented things, you could definitely consider ones like Bloodbath. So this will give you on a 12 matrix bonus an effect res of 18%, and when taking cumulative damage greater than 20% of max HP in a turn, the excess damage is further reduced by 60%. And then one of the Cataclysm sets that I definitely would say could work on a character like Celince would definitely be the Ether Plague, which gives you an HP increase of 25%, but it also comes with effect accuracy of 20%. Another one that also could work as well will be ones like Swift Raid, which this is actually going to be giving you a lot of value, because what it's actually going to be doing is giving you the ability to not only get some extra speed, but also some attack if that's what you're looking for. And then you can also consider ones like Swift Smite, which I think would be a little bit better suited for those that are trying to make sure she's landing her debuffs properly, but also still rotating, which is giving her the speed increase of 15%, but also effect accuracy of 20%. Now, when we're getting into skill prioritization, I would definitely say the skill 3 would be number 1, with the first node increasing the damage multiplier to 70%. The second major node will be increasing the probability of applying an attack break and a crit rate down to 30%. The third node will be further increasing the damage multiplier to 75%. And then the final node will be reducing the skill cooldown by 1 turn. Now, this is unlike a lot of other characters, but the skill 1 is actually going to be next up on the prioritization because this is going to be further increasing the damage multiplier to 220%. You're then going to be increasing the probability of applying a random debuff effect to 40%. On the third node, you'll then be able to increase the damage multiplier to 240%. And on the final one, it will increase the number of random debuff effects applied to 2. And then with the final one here for the skill 2, on the first node, it will increase the absorption ratio of Aqua Shield to 35%. On the second node, it will increase the absorption limit of Aqua Shield to 12% of her max HP. On the third node, it increases the absorption ratio of Aqua Shield to 40%. And then on the final one, it will increase the damage reflection ratio of Aqua Shield to 75%. Now, as far as shell recommendations, I would definitely say in the early game, you have Shadow Runner with the Unbridled Science, Star, the Mermaid Princess, Diamond Heart, Shanghai Jing, Artisan, Gigabyte, Alicorn. One of the ones that I would definitely say could be considered the best in slot would be Black Moon, Codex of Magic, Lighthouse. Now, getting into our infamous pros and cons, I feel like Celince has a good amount of pros, but she also has some cons. And I feel like as far as the pros go, her being able to have an attack break and a crit rate down in her skill 3 is just so impactful. That's really going to be reducing how much damage an opponent is able to deal to you, especially in a PvP setting. But this also can be extremely valuable in PvE content where things tend to hit really hard, and yes, they do crit you. The other thing is too, is that the skill 1 can be quite oppressive, especially when paired up with sets like the Bramble set, where she's going to be able to have the opportunity of utilizing her skill 1 multiple times, especially if you touch her. And the reason why that this also works is because of the fact you also have the Rain Curtain ability, which absorbs 40% of the damage and then reflects 75% of that damage absorbed, and then increases effect res as well while it's active. This is something that actually can be played into your arsenal and what you're basically going to be retaliating against anyway. Not only are you going to be able to deal excess damage or extra reflect damage, but then you also have the chance of then proccing 2 debuffs with that if the skill 1 is able to be active at that point. So it's a lot of different things that you get, which I think kind of makes Celince, again, like I mentioned before, a jack of all trades. But this, of course, does lead us to the issue that Celince is a jack of all trades. And you know how the saying goes, when you're a jack of all trades, you tend to be a master of nothing. And I think that that's something that can be quite problematic for a character like Celince, is that even when you're looking at like her passive ability, where yes, the Aqua Shield is going to be basically equal to 12% of her max HP to her allies, but honestly, they're going to be able to get that knocked off pretty easily. And I think that that's something that we also noticed when we were actually experiencing and going through PvP and PvE with this character, is that that value really does seem like it needs maybe a slight buff to be a little bit more impactful. I think even another thing that a lot of players were mentioning was the fact of how her skill 1 can proc basically debuffs that could just not work, right? And then on top of that, it's also at the chance of it proccing. I personally feel like this is not that bad because there are ways to basically manipulate it and basically make it to where you can proc this a lot of different times and multiple different ways. But I also can see some of the gripes that kind of can come with this. Whereas when you look at a lot of different bosses, Silence doesn't work, Dot doesn't work, and Oblivion doesn't work. So there are going to be a ton of places where you're not going to be getting any value from the skill at all. And even some of the other portions of her kit, it really honestly just depends on the unit and really, relatively speaking, what you're doing. So that's just kind of food for thought. So that's going to be that for the Celestial Rain Celince. I hope that this video was able to give you some more insight on this Animus and how you maybe might be able to work her into your compositions. I still feel like this is an excellent Animus that's worth giving a try. And depending on the combination and the composition that you might find, you might still be able to discover some amazing things and how you can utilize this champion. Now, of course, with that, guys, definitely make sure that you guys like and subscribe to the channel for more Etheria Restart content. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. But nonetheless, guys, everyone, stay blessed. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.